Magus, knock it off.
Yes,
Hi.
got it.
Mhm.
Get it back, get it.
Oh, jeez, these people are going to turn the video off right away now. Hi, I'm Non Critic Dustin. This is two Non Critics over there.
Hey,
That's
what's
Non
up?
Critic Will.
Hey,
We're two lifelong friends and film buffs with very different tastes in film, and we suggest movies for the other person to watch, and we talk about them. Sometimes they're nostalgic, sometimes like the one we just did, Son of Batman, the brand new. Other times they're a bit of a mix, like tonight, well, part two of tonight's show, Steakland. And now, Craig, Will, tell us a little bit about why you chose Steakland, sir. Sorry, my cat is ripping my chair apart.
well, I chose Stakeland is a movie that was made in 2010 directed by Jim Mickle. I chose Stakeland for the simple fact of its name. Uh, you know, just simple as that. I chose it for its name because of the fact that I've seen Zombieland. Zombieland was funny, it was comical, and it was just a comical version of the zombie apocalypse. So when I saw the title of Stakeland, I'm like, okay, that's probably the same concept just with vampires. So let's give it a watch. And when I saw it, it was interesting to me. It was a darker tone than Zombieland. This shit was not comical. It was just, oh, that's fucked up. But I still liked it. It was still a good movie to me, and I wish they had. I actually was looking forward to maybe even a sequel or something else along those lines. Like instead of Zombieland, like if they did Wolfland or something like that. Something where they can just, I don't know, because you do zombies, you do vampires, you could put in some werewolves, put some other shit in there too. I don't know, Wolfland, something. But yeah, that's the sole reason I chose to watch Stakeland was because of the name, and I remember Zombieland. So I was like, okay, this is going to seem interesting. It's just the whole apocalypse thing, just with vampires instead of zombies. So yeah, that's why I chose it.
So that's why you chose to watch it. Is that why you also chose for us to discuss it?
Yeah, because I actually wanted to see your take on it because, yeah, I simply chose it because of the name, but when I watched it, I did like how it progressed. I like the story. Even with there are some stuff that there are things in there that's pretty stupid or doesn't make sense, but overall I still liked it. So that's why I wanted you to watch it to see what your take on it would be.
Mm-hmm. I actually first heard about this movie shortly after it came out. There's a show on YouTube I watch which kind of inspired what we do, called The Cinephiles. Where these guys in New York City, they get together and their whole tagline is "Welcome to the Cinephiles, the show that lets you eavesdrop on the conversations of fellow film fanatics." And that's pretty much what it is. And they were talking about new vampire movies, or not necessarily new, but just vampire movies in general that they thought need a lot more notice. And this was at the top of that list. They all loved it. The way they described it was, this is what I Am Legend should have been.
Okay.
Because if you've seen I Am Legend and if you've read the book, that is not I Am Legend. And I will say, this movie is much closer to I Am Legend in tone than that Will Smith movie is. And in a lot of ways, actually. So I meant to watch it then, based on their suggestion. I rented it and I started to watch it, but then I just must have been too tired. I just fell asleep and I never picked it up again. So when you watched it, I was like, oh, okay, well, there's another movie on my movie bucket list that I can scratch off. And I'll say that I liked it. Well, yeah, I guess I liked it. It's one of those movies I had trouble nailing down my opinion of it because I didn't hate it, I didn't not like it, but I didn't love it, and I had no real strong reaction to it whatsoever. Really, that's so boring to say, but it's true. the things I can say that are set in stone. I thought it was really generic. I thought
Okay.
it's like yeah, I was reminded of Zombieland a lot, not only because of the title, but because the vampires in this might as well be zombies. Other than the
Hmm.
fact that they have fangs and bite your neck, no real difference between them and zombies. Uh, I mean, even you have to sever the spinal cord and everything, which is, I mean, a zombie, you got to blow their brains out or remove the head and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So there are a lot. They are zombies, pretty much. They're living dead things. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between zombies and vampires anyway.
Hmm.
And George Romero will tell you that the first Night of the Living Dead, what he did was a rip off of I Am Legend,
Yeah.
and it's very evident. But he changed it up enough. I mean, the zombies that get bitten by him, you turn into one, very much like a vampire. They live off of human flesh, sort of, and so there's a lot of similarities there already. But where vampires have always been a little different is they have a longer mythology that you can pull from,
Hmm.
and a lot of writers find cool and interesting ways to do that. Like Guillermo del Toro has these series of books that he co-wrote, which is actually being turned into a TV show now called The Strain. And
Yeah.
the vampires in that are very interesting. They're a little bit like this, but their anatomy is kind of screwed up. And they have, you remember in Blade 2, how the dude's like jaw opens
Yeah.
and
Four
it like
ways.
wraps around you and it's got like a little sucker in there like that.
And it
Um,
paralyzes you.
yeah, they have the vampires in that, as I recall, have like a tentacle tongue
Yeah.
that comes out, and this is in The Strain, and they sort of like cut you, and it's like a razor cut, it's so thin you can't even see it, and they start sucking your blood out that way, which I thought was kind of interesting. Or you can go the Anne Rice route to make them very romantic, or I said Anne Rice and not Stephanie Meyer for a very specific reason, and you can go. There are a lot of different ways you can interpret the vampire, and this is one of them. This is
Yeah.
very close to how Richard Matheson realizes the vampires in I Am Legend, except that in I Am Legend, they have retained some of their memories and are able to exploit that to their possible victims. And so this was a lot like that, but they cut that out. Anyway, I thought the vampires in this, they looked intimidating. I
Hmm.
liked that. I didn't think they looked intimidating close up. I thought the makeup was not very convincing. And whenever there was a close up shot, I thought it looked like bad makeup that had been sitting out in the sun too long. But when they're from far away, some of the ways they had the vampires move or made them stand was actually pretty creepy.
Yeah.
And like that one woman vampire, when the main character guy, he's going to the car and he can't get in the car, and he sees that woman at the end of the road. The way she's kind of crouching is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
And when he finds that kid vampire, I guess, even though it did not look like a kid, which is a running theme of this movie. Um, I thought that scene actually was pretty good when he's up in the attic in that house
Yeah.
and he looks in the closet because he sees a little hand, and
It's,
then
yeah. The little girl, or yeah, I think it was a
yeah,
girl. Hmm.
it's supposed to be a girl. It looked like a 25-year-old woman, but he takes her hand and she wakes up, and he's like, "Hey, like you can tell he's gonna be like, hey, everything's all right, don't worry about it." And the way she kind of cocks her head a little bit, I was like, "Oh, gee, that was kind of spooky." But other than that, it reminded me of. It's like it's kind of how you described it. It's like they took the humor out of Zombieland,
Hmm.
which I'm not suggesting this is a ripoff of Zombieland. I want to make that clear. This movie was probably in production around the same time. This is an independent movie, I believe, so those take a long time to make.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a ripoff of Zombieland. I think it's coincidence, but it reminded me a lot of Zombieland. I felt like there are like one-to-one parallels in this movie. You have Mister in this movie, who is essentially the Woody Harrelson character from Zombieland, except he's not funny and he doesn't enjoy it. The Woody Harrelson character in Zombieland is great. He loves it. Other than the fact that he's mourning the death of his child, spoilers, but you've seen it by now.
Was it Woody Harrison or Owen Wilson?
Woody Harrelson. Owen Wilson's not in Zombieland.
I can never get those two. I can
Really?
never get to, the names. Is what.
Woody Harrelson's bald, and he's a natural born killer and Cheers.
Yeah.
And Owen Wilson is not. Owen Wilson,
I thought the names were switched.
right. No, that's fine. But that's how you can keep. My cat is going crazy. So he's a lot like Woody Harrelson's character. And then you have Martin, the young boy of this film. I say that because that kid is clearly like 20 years old.
Yeah.
And I think he's supposed to be playing much, much younger. Like, when there's a scene where they go to see the doctor, and the doctor is like, he needs to be with other children. Like, what children? He's 20. And when Mister keeps referring to him as the boy, I didn't mind that because he's that sort of curmudgeonly gunslinger type character. He's like, come on, boy. Anyone younger than him is going to be called boy.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me too much, but it was distracting when everyone else kept treating him like a little kid. And he was acting like one because that's the role.
Yeah.
And it was kind of awkward. Like, there are certain scenes where you can tell he's supposed to be trying to play a little kid, and it's like, no, it's not going to work. Anyway, his character is he's the Lex Luthor role. I say Lex Luthor because what's his name is playing Lex Luthor in Man of Steel 2. What is his name already? Jesse Eisenberg, who was the main character in Zombieland. Well, we'll move on. Jesse Eisenberg character, except he's not funny.
Yeah.
And then you could also sort of say that Emma Stone's character in Zombieland is Danielle Harris's role in that. Which, I
Belle.
don't remember the character. Was it Belle? Okay.
Yeah, there was Belle.
The pregnant lady. And Danielle Harris from the Halloween movies. And so there's like quick one-to-one comparisons, but I tried to separate it from Zombieland because it's a post-apocalyptic movie, and there really aren't a lot of different ways to do that. The thing is, where Zombieland got it right, I thought, was by making it sort of a traditional post-apocalyptic zombie movie, but also making it sort of a buddy movie at the same time.
Yeah.
And so that was fine with me. I'm like, okay, yeah, I've seen post-apocalyptic zombie movies before, but I like these people, and I like watching them together. I don't like Jesse Eisenberg very much, but I like everyone else around him. And with this, I felt like, okay, all the characters are in place. You have the curmudgeonly survivor guy, the young kid who needs to learn how to survive, the girl who's sort of a love interest, but not really, or in Zombieland she is in this. There's a reason she's not really. And the people they pick up along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there are the humans who are always worse than the monsters themselves.
Oh, I just want to add, there's a... Let me cut you off. I just wanted to add that there's one of the characters in there, black dude in there named Willie.
That's true.
And
his name was Willie.
He's in the military, just he's Marines. So, yeah. That's all I got to say about that one.
I consider
no,
that...
No hate on anybody in the military. Like, everybody knows I'm in the military as well. No hate on any other branches either. I'm just saying. There's a black dude in there named Willie. He's in the military. And I'm a black dude named Willie. And I'm in the military. But I'm critiquing. I'm not killing vampires. But anyway, back to what you were saying.
I don't know. I've been going on too long. But essentially, the biggest problem I have with this movie is what I've been leading up to. Is although I could separate it from Zombieland because they're two very different movies, although they have those one-to-one parallels, it's not different than every other post-apocalyptic zombie, vampire, whatever movie that I've seen.
Yeah.
It's the same staple characters, which is fine. That's what you do in this kind of movie. But they're not very interesting, and they don't do anything very interesting, and they're just kind of surviving, which is fine. I think that's what the movie was trying to do. It was just trying to show people surviving. And I found myself sort of tapping my foot a lot, waiting, and I don't mean figuratively, I mean literally, tapping my foot waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
It seemed like whenever there wasn't a vampire attack happening, nothing else was happening either. and so that was a huge. I thought this movie looked incredible, other than the close-ups of the makeup. I like the cinematography is gorgeous. I know this movie is pretty low budget, and they made it look top notch. I think, yeah, I think all the performances are great.
Yeah.
I think it has some very intense and effective scenes, but overall it's generic and a little boring. Let's go a little bit deeper in the what were you going to say?
Well, no, I was going to ask you a question, but before I ask you a question, I'll just give my opinion on it too. Like I said already, that I did like the movie. I like the dark tone, dark feel of it. The way that they had the vampires, pretty much resembled. They were. It's funny because they were a zombie. You think of mindless, just hungry, just wants to eat whatever it can, whatever that's living. That's the same with these vampires. And I'm used to seeing vampires with a brain, still able to think. So there is a specific part in the movie where one of the main antagonist, he spoiler, he becomes a vampire. But the thing is, when he becomes a vampire that can think, that can talk. No other vampire in that movie can. So they made it seem like he is like one of the first vampires with a mind and still with his memories. Because everyone else is just a mindless, walking vampire that's just trying to eat you. So I can't really say I like that. Just the only reason why I didn't like that is because I'm used to seeing a vampire as someone, a creature that can think, that can talk, that can manipulate its way to you, not just blatantly showing you that I'm a killer and I want to eat you. Yeah. Vampires, they're more swift, they're more cunning, they have more tricks up their sleeve, they're more manipulative than that. What I'm used to seeing over the years.
Right.
So that was a little off for me. That was a little different for me. So
I kind of like that, but like I kind of like that they weren't your typical zombie. See, I didn't even mean to say that. I kind of like that they weren't your typical vampire, but I didn't like that they were so zombie-esque.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a slippery slope because if you don't have a vampire that can think, then you technically have a zombie. But what I was trying to say with The Strain, the Guillermo del Toro book, those vampires don't. I'll let you know right now, I did not finish those books.
Okay.
But I read it in the first one, and it could change. They don't really think. They are just trying to survive. But their design is so interesting and unique, and it feels like something that can exist. That it felt a little more vampiric, even though they weren't the romantic vampires. It wasn't Dracula. It wasn't the Buffy vampires or anything. But they were clearly not zombies. In this, other than that they die in the sun and that they drink blood and have fangs, there's nothing really separating them from zombies. Anyway, continue.
No. Yeah, you pretty much made an interesting point with that. Aside from the style of the vampires in this movie, like I said, overall, I did like the movie. I came into this expecting it to be comical, kind of like Zombieland, but even with the I saw like some screenshots before I saw the movie. I don't think I saw the trailer, but I saw some screenshots, and the screenshots, I'm like, it looked pretty serious. I don't see no one cracking a smile right now. But we'll check it out. So, I came in there thinking it's going to be, horrific, but also comical. But it was just came off as horrific.
There's some pretty good horror in the movie. Like there are some scenes that are unsettling and creepy.
Like, you know, let's talk about. There was actually this one. We were just talking about this on the first part when we were talking about Batman. We kind of went off on a tangent because we were talking about, you know, gore in movies, animated movies, and then also the effects of when you kill children. You know, we brought up Hunger Games. Now, and we said, you know, everybody, it's like a pushing of the envelope when there's anything that's leaning towards a child getting killed, you know, by some type of antagonist, some horrific monster, anything of that sort. It's just like, oh no, they didn't just do that. So at the very beginning of the movie, not really a spoiler, it's the beginning of the movie. Martin, the character Martin, who was the young 20-year-old boy, he gets picked up by Mr. because Mr. happens to be strolling along as Martin's family.
In the movie, it's much more intense than that. Like he was hunting this thing. But I think your version is just kind of like walking along. Oh, a vampire!
So yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I guess Mr. was tracking him down, but Martin left. I forgot exactly, but he left out of his house because he heard something. Good thing he left out of his house, because once he left out of his house, the vampire came in and started killing off his family. His father, his mother, and the baby. I don't know if it was a boy or a girl. But anyway, as Mr. goes into the house or barn, wasn't it? It was a barn. Yeah, as Mr. goes into the barn, it's a dark and stormy night as well. As Mr. goes into the barn with Martin and tells Martin, "Shut up! Don't make a noise. If you say anything, if you make a sound, I'll kill you myself." As he goes in, you hear the baby crying. You know, and you hear it sounds. It's like in a corner, in a dark corner somewhere, and all of a sudden you see little glimpses of the vampire, and he's holding the baby, and then he just starts. He's chewing on the baby. You don't see the initial bite, but you just all of a sudden see the baby to his face, and he's chewing. Then all of a sudden he just drops it. When he drops it, you can clearly see it's a damn Cabbage Patch Kid. It's a doll or whatever. You can clearly see it's a doll, but just from the fact that they put that in the movie where you just see this vampire just chowing down on this baby. Like, I know a lot of viewers were like either in disgust, in total shock. I know there were probably some complaints like, why the fuck would you show that in the movie? It's a dark movie. It's a vampire movie. People die. But yeah.
Right.
I was when I first saw that, it went by so quick. I didn't really have time to process it, so it just came out as, did he just chew on a baby? Oh shit. That's exactly how it came out, like, oh shit. He just chewed on a baby and then dropped it. Oh, it's a doll. Okay, I'm good now.
I thought it was smart for them to do that right at the beginning, because in the beginning of a horror movie, you have to let people know that some shit's going to go down. Like, look at the beginning of Scream. There are no other scenes in that movie that are as intense as the opening Scream. And
yeah.
there's two disembowelings in it.
Oh yeah.
Like a girl has a knife jammed in the side of her neck and she's hung from a tree while her parents are right there and they don't realize what's going on. The mom has to listen to her daughter being murdered on the phone. Like, that's fucked up. And,
that is fucked up. I'd kill somebody. I'd go crazy.
And so the reason the beginning of the movie is like that is because they have to establish the tone. And the beginning of that movie perfectly establishes the tone. Scream I'm talking about. It does here too, but in Scream it begins very creepy, but also very funny, and very smart, and gets very dangerous. And they don't pull any punches. And so I thought it was very smart of them in this to, instead of just going with a random zombie attack, making it the main character, making it his family, and by showing, because so many people have a visceral reaction to violence towards children in movies, for them to just begin with a child being eaten is perfectly sets up, look, we're not fucking around. You're going to see some shit. But
then,
other than that, right, it was just like, okay, I saw it as a way of establishing tone rather than a way of trying, other than as something taboo. You know?
and then on top of that, after they were able to kill the vampire, then you kind of see the transition in the father figure per se, because Mister was the one to finish off Martin's dad. Before he did it, Martin's father said, please take care of me, take care of my son, because he was leaking everywhere. He was bit up to shit, leaking everywhere. He was bit up to shit and just leaking everywhere. And then to watch this random man that I just met save my life, mind you, but now he's going to hack away on my father. It's like, it's too much for right now. Like, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, it'd be too much. I don't know whether to hit you or to thank you, But, yeah, so it's pretty much, it's kind of like symbolic showing Misters is taking the role of being his protector, being his father figure, the person that he can depend on.
Mm-hmm.
And the old father accepting it by saying, take care of my son. So that was pretty fucked up.
I wanted to say, in the nature of post-apocalyptic stories, I'm not a big fan.
Okay.
And I used to be. And I was thinking about it while watching this, and why I don't respond well to post-apocalyptic movies. And it's interesting, because these days, while we're being assaulted by images that we would have considered apocalyptic, we're just constantly being assaulted with these images. Times like this of serious unrest is when apocalyptic stories, like in the 70s, there were a lot of disaster movies that came out.
Yeah.
And it was a response to social unrest. And that it's going on now. There's a lot of zombie movies, and the reason zombies are so popular is because you can project your fears on zombies. Let's say you're afraid of the oil crisis. The zombies can represent that. You're afraid of war in general. You're afraid of global warming. Whatever it is, zombies represent that. And so that's why these sort of zombie movies subconsciously have become so popular. It's a simple way of dealing with these problems.
Yeah.
Against these overwhelming odds, everything becomes simplified. You just need to survive. And these movies sort of exercise that people. I'm sort of the opposite of that. When things feel overwhelming, like, don't want to delve too much into my personal life or anything, but I was really worried about whether or not I was going to have a job. And I was worried, I have a lot of bills to pay, a lot of things are stacking up, piling up. And when that happens, the last thing I want is to experience an apocalypse. I want hope. And so that's why lately I've been watching a lot of lighter entertainment, and not things to turn your brain off to, but just things that give me some sort of hope, either creatively or personally or anything like that. And to me, an apocalyptic story isn't very hopeful. And this movie is not very hopeful at all. I mean, they established right from the beginning that there's no hope anymore.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I was really missing from the movie. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, because I do think people should watch it. It's worth a watch if they haven't already. This is one of those movies I'm behind on. Everyone else has seen it but me. And they do sort of start to lace in little bits of hope. And it worked for the movie. I just wish there was a little bit more of that. Like there's a scene where they come to a town and everybody has a nice way of life. You know, they work, they sell, they trade. It's like the old West. They party, and as soon, I'm not lying, as soon as they cranked up that generator and the music started playing and all the lights came on, I'm like, there's going to be an attack. There's going to be an attack. Because I just felt that the movie, this is not the type of movie that in the middle of it you'd have a reprieve from the darkness and from the lack of hope. In fact, this is the type of movie that will give you that hope and then take it away.
Yeah.
But then later on, they start to lace in some hope. What were you going to say?
Well, I got actually three things, and they're kind of all different. They're what we were just talking about, but it's all different things. Number one, when we were talking about the whole thing with children dying in movies, like with this one, with the whole beginning scene to really hook you and show you this shit is real. For me, not pertaining to this movie, but pertaining to what we were talking about children dying in movies, I think the greatest effect on me for a movie was when I was a kid. I probably was like 6 or 7, and you remember the 1980s movie The Blob? I remember it. I forgot it was 86, 87,
somewhere around there.
But the Blob color version.
Well, the original was in color too.
The original was black and white, wasn't it?
Nope.
I thought the original was like black and white, and then the 1980s one was color.
Nope.
Nope.
It could be wrong.
Continue.
Keep talking. I'm going to figure that out. I'm listening. I promise.
All right. I got you. But what really affected me and kind of creeped me out was, first off, I was a little kid, and let's face it, when I was a little kid, I didn't like scary movies. I was a little punk bitch. I can say that because it's my life. I don't care. I was a little punk bitch. But I'm good now. Anyway, when they were, the main character, I forgot the woman's name, but the main character, she was being chased by the Blob. She was in the sewer with her little brother and her little brother's best friend. And they're being chased in the sewer, and the Blob was able to catch up to them, and it got a hold of the little brother's best friend. Now, that little kid, he looked like he was 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
All you saw was it grab him and suck him under. Now, okay, it was already messed up that it sucked him under, but I was as a kid, I was okay with that because, you know, it didn't show the after effect. But then he pops up, and the Blob is still over him, and you see his skin melting away and everything like that. Mm-hmm. That freaked me out, and that actually gave me nightmares for a few days because it actually went that far of not only killing the kid, but showing the kid slowly dying, showing the kid melting away, and I was just like,
yeah. Now, do you think the effect of that was because it was a kid or because it was so grotesque?
Both. Both.
And by the way, yes, the 1958 Blob was in color. It
was in color?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Doesn't matter, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. But yeah, it was both. It was grotesque and it was a kid. But more, if I had to choose a side, it was more because it was a kid. Because, you know, you always see in these horror movies, it's always going after the adults or the horny-ass teenagers that are always ready to have sex, like it's a porno. You never see nothing with the kids. The kids always happen to get away. So, when it killed that kid, I was just like, oh, shit, I'm not safe. Damn.
Oh, okay.
So...
You took it personally.
I was like, God damn. And it melts you. Damn it.
I felt that way about... Well... Yeah, I think I felt that way about the Salem's Lot.
Oh yeah,
Original TV movie. That scene when the little kid is at the window
yeah.
and he's doing like he's scratching at the window, going around the window scratching, and he's like, "Let me in," and they let him in, and he just slowly comes in. That terrified me. I literally, and I'm not kidding, had to sleep in the living room. For some reason, I felt safer in the living room, and I had to surround myself with crucifixes that I made out of toys,
Oh
and
Jesus.
I slept with my arms like this, like a crucifix. I was so terrified of that scene, and part of it is because it was a child, and I've never seen a child vampire before. Especially, and not only that, not only was it a kid, and I'd never seen a kid vampire, but also it was that kid's like best friend.
Yeah.
And he was just letting in his best friend. Although when your best friend is hovering at your window with a bunch of fog behind him, you might want to take heed and not open the window. That was creepy.
Jeez, yeah, that would be extremely creepy.
That's still a pretty good vampire movie, by the way. So,
It is.
I like the design of the vampire in that, the Nosferatu. Anyway, continue. You had three things.
I was okay. The other one. Well, what character stood out to you the most for you?
Oh, that's a good question. Because I don't know. The way I identified the characters in my head was there was Mister. I guess he stuck out the most to me because his name was Mister, and he wasn't like I was just like I could keep that name straight, Mister. And I thought he looked like Mickey Rourke. And but other than that, I didn't think his character was all that interesting. He was kind of generic. But yeah, maybe him. Yeah, but when I was watching the movie, this is how I identified it. There was Mister, there was Kid, there was Girl, there was Black Guy, there was Nun, and there was Other Girl. I couldn't keep their names straight, except Martin. Which Martin, I did think, I don't know if they did this on purpose, but George Romero made a really, really interesting vampire movie in the late 70s, maybe 1980, at the latest, 81, called Martin. And I love that movie. And and I wonder if they named that kid in honor of Martin, especially because, and I just put this together now, in the movie Martin, everyone thinks he's like 20.
Yeah.
In his mind, he's telling people he's much older than that. And they're like, no. He's like, no, I'm pretty old. And in this, the kid's like 20, and they're like, what is he, 12? I don't know. Like, scene where they're at the bar, and the bartender's like, what about the kid? We don't sell no soda pop here. Like, soda pop? Like, maybe he's not 21, but I think he's past soda pop. I don't think it matters in a world where vampires run amok if a kid has a shot of alcohol in that.
Yeah, it shouldn't really fucking matter.
But I mean, they would introduce characters and then either kill them off or just do nothing interesting. Like Danielle Harris's character, or Girl. They spend a lot of time setting her up. You see her singing that song, and then you see her, holding her belly while she's getting bottles together and stuff like that. They're setting her up, and you think maybe they're going to do something with this character, and then they just kind of don't. And I understand I don't want to spoil anything, but what eventually goes on with that character is important. But they didn't. I don't feel they used her to full effect with that black guy. Sorry, I'm calling him black guy, but that's kind of what he was in the movie. He showed up. He talked like a black guy in a movie talks. Who's saying like, what did he say? He's like, yo, those motherfuckers, and all this kind of stuff. Like, he just talks like the right black person. And He's military. You'd think he'd have more to do, and he doesn't. And so none of the characters really stuck out to me. Maybe Mister, just because I could keep. His personality was identified right from the get-go, and they used it to the full extent that they could. So, yeah. What about you?
Whew. Well, aside from Willie, because he was Willie. No. But I also like
black guy.
I like how you said that generic black guy in the typical movie. I like how you said that. You worded it just right. You worded it just right because
not a real life black person. But
people are like, "Fuck you mean? How a generic black guy is?" Good. Kudos.
I've been friends with a black guy for a long time. I know how to walk on eggshells.
Yeah. Hey guys. Hey. We're like brothers. So yeah. Hey. But
not in the black term way either.
Let's do it, my brother, man. Who stood out to me the most? It would be between Martin and Mister. I mean, because it's pretty much being told through Martin's. It's told through Martin's story. I guess I would also go with another interesting character because I don't want to really keep touching on Mister or Martin, but Sister, the nun. She was
forgetting about her until you mention her.
She was an interesting character to me because it's like she always still tried to find the hope in people when there's pretty much no fucking hope if they are already dead and they turn into a vampire. But like she felt pissed when they caught that one vampire in a bear trap and like killed her, beat the shit out of her, and killed her or whatnot because that used to be a person, and actually that was a woman that she knew. She's like, oh yeah, that's Sister so and so. So she's like, have some respect. She's a vampire. She has no hesitate. She won't hesitate to eat you.
Right.
So, but the fact that she still found hope in people even after they turn, pretty interesting, pretty stupid, and pretty weird.
Something else I wanted to say in regards to post-apocalyptic movies in general. The type of apocalyptic movies I enjoy are like the Phantasm movies.
Yeah.
Which there's a new one, by the way, and it looks weird. I mean, they're all weird, but this one just visually looks odd. And I like those movies a lot because they're exactly that. They're weird. Whereas Stakeland doesn't have enough going on for me in terms of character or plot. The Phantasm movies got a ton of shit going on. I mean, there's like time travel, there's zombies, there's midget people zombies, there's the tall man himself. There's weird creatures and stuff. Like they just keep throwing shit at you in each one of those movies, and it's always entertaining and very atmospheric. And also, besides that, the main characters are driven to do something, and they are other than the typical other than the typical we've got to get to this place where we'll be safe. They are hunting down the man who's causing the apocalypse. And that having such a strong goal like that, and a personal goal as well, they have a personal vendetta against the tall man, is very, very interesting. And I also enjoyed Stephen King's The Stand, both the book and the miniseries, although a lot of people hate the miniseries, because that has a lot going on in it too. It's not just a post-apocalyptic movie. There's Randall Flagg, there's Mother Abigail, there's deceit amongst them. There's a lot of shit going on that keeps the momentum going. When it comes to zombie movies, I don't know if it's just I don't think zombies are very interesting, which I don't. But it's just usually we got to get to this place to be safe, or we have to survive. Like Walking Dead, for example. I understand that Walking Dead is about the characters
Yeah.
and whatnot, but it's still just not that interesting to me. And the other kind of post-apocalyptic movies I enjoy are like the Mad Max movies,
Yeah.
where just this new civilization that crops up is just so strange and obsessed with cars and such.
Now, you know what? Actually, I just want to stop you right there real quick because what you just said about Mad Max and those type of post-apocalyptic movies where it's building a new civilization, you know, it's new, it has some adventure or whatnot. Okay, now I distinctly remember us talking about not on this, but just in general, we were talking about Waterworld because I said I recently watched Waterworld. You don't like that movie,
It's all right.
but that is kind of from what you're saying, that's kind of your feel of a new like post-apocalyptic world where it's just they're building a new society, just that it's surrounded solely by water.
Right.
So, but I thought like the last time we talked about it, you said you didn't like Waterworld.
I like it okay. It's too long.
Okay.
If it was, I mean, it's not. I don't hate it like a lot of people. Most people will say it's one of the worst movies of the '90s. But I liked it just fine. I thought I liked that Kevin Costner had gills. I don't know why I liked that. I just did. But I mean, but for me, the problem with Waterworld, it's just too long, and
Yeah.
and that has a lot going on too. But a lot of that stuff going on amounts to nothing, and that's my problem with it. But I mean, other than that, yeah, I'd rather watch Waterworld than say generic movie zombie apocalypse thing.
Now, also, okay, here this was the third thing actually. I remember because I kind of forgot. But when you were talking about with the post-apocalyptic movies where it's just like no hope, or they give you some hope, then to just crush your dreams. How would you say this movie compared to, as far as in that aspect, like dealing with hope and taking your dreams away? One movie that really gets me, that reminds me of that, is The Mist. Stephen King's The Mist. Now, pretty much throughout that whole movie, you don't see no. For me, I didn't see no fucking hope at all. There's just because we've talked about this before. Fear of the unknown. That's the worst kind of fear you can have. It's fear of the unknown, not knowing what is out there, what's going to attack you. You know, and this whole new thing that's in the mist, whether it's this giant ass, looks like a praying mantis, or these little mutated spiders or tentacles, like you don't know what is in the mist. So it's fear of the unknown. And this is pretty much not a spoiler because everybody has to see the mist by now. But the very ending, I wouldn't even say the very ending was hope. The very ending was just fucked up.
Yeah, there's
And
no
then
hope in that movie.
there was no hope, and then until the end where the military came. Somehow the mist automatically just cleared, and the military comes through right after he kills his family.
That was
So-
another child death that actually had a severe effect on me
Really.
because it was a good character. I
So,
cared about the kid.
So what did you think about that that aspect of, you know, hope and then crushing your dreams away and whatnot?
Well, that's a little different because the characters were stronger in the Mist, and I cared about them more. And this movie did remind me of the Mist a bit because there's that entire faction of people that are religious fanatics, and that always pops up in post-apocalyptic movies. It's with the Mist, there's no hope whatsoever, but I enjoyed those characters so much that it kept my attention, and I really, really enjoyed the creatures.
Yeah.
Even though, again, with The Mist, I read the book first. The ending, it's not the same ending as in the book. The book doesn't really end. It
Oh, okay.
does,
I was,
but
I was about to ask you, how is the ending of the book?
the ending of the book, well, it's a novella. It's not. I mean, they sold it separately. It's in a collection of Stephen King short stories, and then they sold it separately at a time with the movie. It's the whole time the main character is writing his story. He's at a hotel that they're living in, and he's writing the story of the mist. And he's like, we're just going to keep moving. Hopefully it'll clear, but it hasn't yet. We're just going to keep moving, and that's the end.
Oh, okay.
Not a very satisfying ending, which Stephen King is notorious for.
I'd rather go with that than him blowing all his family away and then.
Not me. I think that at least this movie gave you some kind of closure, although that closure was awful. Not awful in terms of storytelling, awful in terms of emotional impact. It's, I thought it was ballsy, and I thought that it was deserved. And a lot of people don't agree with me. They
The
think
Mist?
that the ending was a manipulation, but I think that the movie had built to a point where that was a natural ending to the story.
The Mist, for me, that was actually the first movie in history, the first movie in my whole life that I actually got up and walked out. Didn't even let the credits go by. Right after I saw the military pass through, I was just flabbergasted. I was just, what the fuck? I was so pissed. I just got up and walked out, and I've never did that for any movie, no matter how boring it was, even if I was falling asleep. Never did that. But for The Mist, I had to. I couldn't take it.
Well, that was the end anyway.
Yeah, but that was just so fucked up. I was like, okay, time to go. Time to go.
I mean, in comparison, just a moment. In comparison to Stakeland, where the ending of that is very similar to the ending of the book for The Mist, I just didn't care enough about these people to really care what happened to them. And in The Mist, you had formed such a strong relationship with those people that the reaction you had is totally justified. And the ending itself is, I feel, completely justified. It's not just like, yo, this is fucked up, huh? It's like, oh my god, even the heroes are wrong. There are no heroes in this story. And that I thought was very, very unique and interesting. And like, there's another movie called, I think it's called Miracle Miles, and it's about an impending nuclear attack on Los Angeles, I think. And the whole movie, these people are just trying to escape. They know that it's coming, and it's really weird. But the thing is, spoilers, the movie's been out for 30 years, that the nuclear attack comes. And the main characters who are trying to escape, I think they're trapped in a car, and they drove off a bridge. I haven't seen the movie in like 20 years, but like drove off a bridge and they're sinking and they're underwater. And so outside the bombs are dropping and they're drowning. And that was just a bummer. I was just
That's fucked up.
I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. But in The Mist, it was so smart to end the movie that way, because it shows consequences of just not staying. It shows the consequences of panic and of not unifying as a species. It's just this crazy thing's going on. We're not united. We're just going out for ourselves, and that's the shit that happens. The lawyer in that movie, he's like, no, fuck you guys. We're just leaving. He leaves. He dies. The one woman who's looking out for her kids and wants someone to help her, no one helps her. They're all looking out for themselves. Even Thomas Jane's character, he's just looking out for himself and his kid. And she wants them all to sort of band together. They don't, and they end up killing each other. Thomas Jane and the four others, they end up leaving, and they're still just in service for themselves. That's what happens. You end up, I don't know if you saw this when you got up and left, but when the military comes,
It's her.
And the Mist, yeah, she's there and she's still alive. And if they had helped her, maybe they would have been too. And I thought it was a great comment on sort of, this is going to sound weird, but Frank Darabont, the writer and director of it, he said that his movies used to be very hopeful, like Shawshank Redemption, another Stephen King movie, The Green Mile, another Stephen King movie. There was a lot of hope in that. The Mist doesn't. And he says the reason for that, he's like, I'm not the same person I was when I made those movies. The events of the 21st century have not been to my liking, and I'm very bitter. And The Mist is sort of his statement on that. Now, yes, I am contradicting myself a little bit from saying that I prefer movies with hope, and I prefer movies that don't remind me of all the bullshit going on. But I thought that movie was such a poignant statement that I accepted.
Yeah.
It went beyond just being fantasy and actually being a comment on something. Stakeland is a pure fantasy, and I don't think it goes beyond anything other than that. Which is okay, but it doesn't do anything. Like, I remember in the movie there's a scene where they do the big reveal that you were talking about, the vampire who can think now.
Jebediah, yeah.
Right. He has a moment where he's like, I've seen a lot of mutated vampires. I haven't seen one that can think yet. And then you're like, oh, he can think. Oh, well. I was kind of hoping there would be more build-up to that.
Yeah.
Like maybe they suspected they were being hunted, or that someone was following them, and there was sort of clues leading up to it. Because there was nothing like that, or there were no rumors of thinking, or were there? Maybe I missed that. I don't know. Rumors of thinking vampires?
Their only one was with Willie's death. When they found Willie the next day.
Oh, exactly. I meant before that.
No.
I was referencing that scene, but I meant before that if there was a rumor, like just something people talking about it, they sort of hear it in the peripheral, or maybe even on one of their radio shows. I'm sure the guy is meant to represent a new mutation, and that's fine, but it felt like random. Like it came out of nowhere. And I wish there was more build up to that. That's what I felt like in this movie. You want a sequel. I wish there was more in the movie. There you go. I don't know. I don't have much else to say on it. Do you?
Not really. The only thing I can think of, I mean, we're kind of taking a while on this, but before we wrap this up, I can't think of that other. There was another vampire movie that came out later, I think 2012. It was more of an action type movie. You remember the actor that was in the movie with the angels? They were trying to kill the baby, and he was actually protecting.
Oh, you mean Priest?
Priest, yeah. That vampire movie?
Yeah, never saw it.
Priest? Oh, okay. Well, the main antagonist in that, he used to be one of the fellow priests that kills the vampires, and then he became a vampire by the queen. But when he became a vampire, he was still a vampire that was able to think and react. Because all the other vampires in that movies, they're more like creatures. They don't even walk on two legs. They are on all fours. They're more like creatures. Right. But he's the only one that can think and talk and this and that. So same comparison to Stakeland.
Yeah, there's in the original book for I Am Legend, that's a big part of the book, is that the vampires are starting to regain not only their old identity but a new identity, and they're starting to learn to talk, and they're starting to build a new civilization, and they really represent the next evolution of man and whatnot. And so I was wondering if maybe if Stakeland was alluding to that a little bit.
Yeah.
But it just came out of nowhere, I thought. And I didn't like those guys anyway, the Brotherhood. I thought the Brotherhood was kind of just there just to be assholes in the story. I mean, they were there to provide some other opposition besides the vampires,
Mm-hmm.
and which is good. I like it when that happens. You know, if you look at 28 Days Later, you have all those military guys that are really worse than the zombies themselves.
Oh
And
yeah, bastards.
and they worked in that. In this, it doesn't really work because I don't really understand the Brotherhood. Yes, they're religious fanatics, and for some reason they believe that the vampires were sent down to kill the non-believers and whatnot. And but what I didn't understand was they escaped the Brotherhood and they went to a new town, but the Brotherhood was there waiting for them, like the same guys. How did that
Yeah.
happen?
I,
Like I can
well, I mean,
understand if it was another version, like another, and you know, like the Brotherhood extends across the country, and this is just another sect. But they're the same
yeah.
guys. I just
Well, I
didn't.
mean, they. I don't know if you noticed the whole night of the big party
Hmm.
and how vampires were being dropped onto the whole place from helicopters. That was them. That was their helicopters.
Yeah.
So
So
possibly that.
yeah, they could have flown there, but I mean, there was no explanation that maybe the Brotherhood travel. I mean, you have to assume they probably do, but
Hmm.
were they hunting them the whole time? I guess they were. I don't know. It was that whole Brotherhood thing. I didn't really like.
Yeah.
I like that there was other opposition besides the vampires. I just wish there was again more done with it. I don't know. Anyway, we've picked this movie to death. We've picked
Yes.
other apocalyptic movies to death. Um, Next week we'll have more movies. I don't know what they'll be. Maybe we'll finally talk about the silent films. Maybe we won't. Um, but until then, who knows? And have you thought of anything to end the show with? We still don't.
Stay indoors. Just random. I don't know.